When did you first meet? A long time ago.
1957, I think, in Venice. And we were on the beach and we met, and we became fine friends, and we stayed and we will be.
The Making of Maria by Callas 2020 is an exhibition by Jacqueline Fraser. It's the 15th iteration of her Making of series, a series of exhibitions and installations she started in 2011. Jacqueline's an artist from New Zealand who's been making work since the late 70s, primarily using collage and also transforming spaces in head-to-toe, fully immersive installations using all sorts of materials. In the mid-2000s, after exhibiting quite a lot in Europe and the US, Jacqueline became really interested in exporting her work to a really broad audience, much broader than a specific art audience. So she had this idea of taking cinema as a point of departure for her practice. And she came up with the Making of series, and in this series we're presented with the idea that we're going to get a preview or a behind-the-scenes look of a specific film. Jacqueline's title incorporates the film title almost like a bit of a lure or a bait, something to attract an audience in, an unsuspecting audience. And in this case, she's using a film called Maria by Callas, which was made in 2017 about the life and world of Maria Callas. Throughout the series, Jacqueline's used all sorts of films, standard Hollywood pulp to really high-end art house Italian films. There have been mob films, films about Italian gangsters like The Pope of Greenwich Village or American Gangster, films about financial scams and hustling and gambling like Wall Street and Mississippi Grind. Also films that have a racial dimension to them or are about characters who have to contend with society's expectations of them. Carbon Copy, Denzel Washington's first film, or In the Heat of the Night, a film with Sidney Poitier. It was the first American film where a black man struck a white man back. But there's no real specific or dominant theme or grouping to these films. That's really left out in the open. Jacqueline says she's just in her studio working all day and they're playing in the background. So while she's working, she's deconstructing the mood, the tone, the script, and the atmosphere of the film. And that inspires dress assemblages and magazine collages. People dealing with the expectations of celebrity has been something of a running theme in Jacqueline's work. And Maria's story really fits to this theme. Someone who had to deal with a very traumatic personal life, a deprived childhood, but then also had to become a global pop star, and in the process of doing that delivered bel canto opera to a really far-reaching audience. So Jacqueline's exhibition splits the room in two in a similar way. The first half is a room lined with black tinsel in which Tom Vol's film is projected, but is obstructed by a golden chandelier. When the projection hits the chandelier, it illuminates, but it also casts a shadow of the film. It behaves in the way that the collages do as well. It sort of cuts out people that would otherwise appear, disfigures them. In a much larger room, pink tinsel has been used to create architectural motifs, a really otherworldly space. There are large floor-to-ceiling columns, 3 huge chandeliers, an architectural feature that looks like a white opera bar, and 11 assemblages. 8 of these assemblages are hung up on the wall. They're made of fabrics that she's found in secondhand stores and tied together in a really abstract way. And then they've been overlaid with paper collages made from magazines that she collects. She collects art magazines, fashion magazines, lifestyle magazines, and tears them up to sort of refigure the bodies, give them accessories, and put them in landscapes. 3 of the assemblages are hung in space, so they're much larger than life. They're hanging down from the rafters with black ribbon, and they have like a translucent material, these raincoats. Within them is a pink material, which sort of relates to the pink tinsel behind them. Jacqueline was really specific about the ordering of the works in the room. They're not happenstance. I had assumed that this might be because there is a narrative to them. Perhaps there are stories within these images. Perhaps she's seeing Maria Callas as one particular person. It's not the case though. It's more like a visual or formal solution to the work. Jacqueline's not interested in providing a very dominant narrative to her making of Maria Callas' life story. These figures aren't supplanting her, and there's no specific plot being delivered here. These are what are her formal solutions to negotiating the space and creating another world. Perhaps to people who are familiar with the history of art, Jacqueline's work could definitely be seen in line with pop art movements, certainly with pictures generation artists who were interested in deconstructing and collaging found material from mass media. Perhaps also to artists who are interested in retransforming an institutional entertainment space into something else. But she's not really interested in the way that her work might be seen through an art lens. She wants it to be sort of like cinema, approachable for an everyday audience. A 10-second effect where people come in and feel something. I think that's something that also resonates with her interest in Maria Callas. You feel that music and the way that you feel cinema in a particular way. Jacqueline's also composed a playlist of about 30 really contemporary rap songs that play throughout both rooms the whole time. Some of the time they make for a really muddy collage with the audio of the film. Other times it's really abrasive. Songs by Jay-Z or Kanye West, A$AP Rocky, 21 Savage, clashing with Maria Callas. But there are moments where they make for a really nice duet, and today's pop stars sort of reach back in time to a pop star from the 50s and 60s. One of the constants throughout the shows is are these black wigs, and this perhaps is a signal to, or a tip of the hat to Maria Callas. Jacqueline described the show as almost like a sci-fi set where she could imagine Maria Callas stepping in and choosing a dress for the evening. And I suppose that moment is imagined with these wigs that are constant throughout all the works. Really long black wigs, similar to Maria's hair, on the 8 assemblages on the wall, and short wigs on the 3 assemblages that hang from the rafters. I became aware of Jacqueline's work through friends, through artists of my generation who were really obsessed with her work and her approach to being an artist. And I think one aspect of that is that her work really insists on being contemporary. It feels fresh. It uses the material and language of a very present moment in fashion, in media culture, in pop culture. So in her works, which sort of speak to all sorts of different artistic, sculptural languages, there's this feeling of immediacy to them. And I think being able to continually do that through her work, even though she's been doing it for 4 decades, is quite remarkable. It attests to her having her finger on the pulse of what's going on in the culture at any given time. I think maybe one of the ways I would describe what she does in her work overall is channeling a cultural zeitgeist with a bit of distance to it. These are images that anyone could find in magazines or clothes that anyone could find in secondhand stores, but she's found a way to sort of take them with a little bit of distance and channel something out of them, refigure or remix popular culture in a way that still carries this freshness that makes you reinterrogate the image in a different way. A friend once told me that he was in a Jacqueline Fraser exhibition and didn't really know what he was doing there. It was called The Making of Purple Rain, and he spent about 20 minutes trying to figure out whether Prince was in this work, if it was about Prince, whether it was actually going to be revealing something about his life. Suddenly, after about 30 minutes, he realized he'd been looking really intently at sculpture the whole time. So it really works. She's been able to lure in and trap people into her shows without them even knowing it. The amount of people that have come to this exhibition thinking that they're going to learn about Maria Callas has been really interesting. And of course they do. The film is really wonderful and instructive to that end. But they also had this other experience where they're in the show already and they have to look quite closely at it and feel it.
was very big.